So I know I said I gave you Mr. STEM's video, but I sat down to do the problem and figured I might as well give you my video too. In the designer box, I just followed the steps in the book, and then it said to set it up however you wanted. So I put in some layouts. This is a table to hold all the buttons. You can set yours up any way you want it to be set up, and I might even change things around as we go here. Step 10 wants us to create a global variable that's going to hold the index. So I'm going over here to variables, initialize a global variable. I'm going to name it index. In MIT App Inventor, our indexes always start at 1. Okay, so we need to initialize that to 1. An index is simply just a list of things. Okay, it's simply just a list of whatever it is that you're working with. In this case, we are indexing interview questions. Okay, we're going to initialize it to 1 because in MIT, our index always starts at 1. If we were coding in Python, our index would start at 0. It wants us to create a second global variable, and this one's going to be called interview questions, interview underscore questions. And it says in the list drawer over here on the left, there's one that says make a list, and that's what we're going to grab. We're going to have 5 interview questions, so we need to add in 3 more little things in our mutator because we need 5 of those. Okay. And then we're going to connect a string to each open socket in the make a list. So we're going to text, grab our string box, and then you can just duplicate these. Make my mutator go away. Once these are all duplicated, you can just attach them right into the little sockets. And we've got our 5 strings. Okay. In the last string box, add a statement to let the user know that all the questions have been asked and that clicking the button again will restart the interview. In the remaining strings, ask the user what they think should be changed about the app they are using right now. Do they like the look of the interface? Is it easy to navigate? Okay. So, for example, this last box, I just lost my mouse. There it is. This last box, we want to say all questions, and you can word this in any way you want it to, have been answered. Click next question to start a new interview, just so that they know that that's what's going to happen. And then these top 4 are going to be your actual questions. So, you can ask them what, I'm taking this right from the book, what kind of apps are you most likely to buy? My next one is going to be, do you like, the look of the user interface? Again, just taking these questions right out of the textbook. Is it easy to navigate? What should be changed? Okay, so we now have our list. Okay, the next thing we're doing is what's called initializing the screen. And initializing the screen is just setting our screen up for the way we want it to be at the very beginning. Okay, so if we come over here on the left, we have a screen 1 that we started to create. And we're going to go when screen 1 dot initialize event handler. So again, we're just setting up what we want to happen when they open up our app. So we are going to drag out and add the set display question dot text label block. Okay, so we're going to come down here where it says display questions, set display question dot text is going to go in here. Whoops. Okay. From the list drawer, select and drag out the select list item block. So I'm going to go over here to my list drawer. Select list item block. Set the list socket to get the global interview questions. So we're going to go here, get our global interview questions. So it knows what list it's looking for. Okay. So this tells it, this first line tells it that you're looking for this list up here. Then the index socket is going to be get the global index variable. And then this line says this is the question you're going to go to. Okay, and obviously in this situation, we want it to start at the very first question. There is a check your code box on your screen or on your textbook if you want to check your code. Go ahead and test your app, make sure it's still working, or make sure it is working. Okay. Before you can actually start the interviews, we have to set up the list so that all questions will be asked and recorded. And after the last response is recorded, the user is taken back to the first question. So when the user taps the button that records the answer and then gets the next question, the event handler records the following in the tiny database: the name of the person, the date via the date picker, the question number, and the response. Okay. The app will also display the next question and clear only the interviewee's answer text box. In this way, a user can go through each question, recording the information to the database. Once they've gone through all the questions, the loop needs to restart at the first question. A control structure in the loop will determine whether the app should progress to the next question or restart because all of the questions were displayed. So we need to work with another event handler. So I'm going to minimize this one. I'm going to minimize some of these things so that we have more space. So the next event handler we need is the get next question dot click. So if we come down here under, I put mine in a table, get next question, and we want get next question dot click event handler. If the global index is less than the length of the global interview questions, then not all questions have been asked. Set the global index to add 1 to increment. Else, all the questions have been asked. Set interviewee name text to blank. Set global to 1. And then after the conditional, set the interview answers text to blank. Okay. I'm looking at number 19 on my textbook. And if we click on the hint box, it shows us what blocks we need, which is fantastic. So we're going to go up to our logic. Nope, let me try that again. Control. And we want an if then else block. I'm going to stick that one in there. So it says if the global index is less than the length of the global interview questions variable. So we want a less than sign. So we're going to math. We're going to grab our equal sign, change it to less than. We said if the global index, so we're going to get our global index, is less than the length of the global interview questions. Now, in our list, there should be one that says length of list. So we want to know if the global index, this number right here, is less than the number of questions we have left. Okay, so we have to get our questions. Get our global interview questions. So this is going to check to see if the number that we're on is less than the number of questions we have. So we have questions 1 through 3. As long as we're not on question 4, this should work. Okay. Then not all the questions have been answered, so we have to set the global index to add 1 to itself. Okay, set the global index. We want it to add 1, so we're going to math, addition. Oh, I should have duplicated that before I picked up the math block. Nope, I didn't need that one anyway. I needed the get. Get global index. We want to increment it by 1. Because each time we ask a question, our index moves up by 1. We start at question 1, we go to question 2, go to 3, go to 4. So this is what will send us from one question to the other. Okay. Else, if all the questions have been asked, then we're going to set our interviewee name text to blank and set our global index back to 1. So here we can set global index. We can duplicate that 1. And we're going to set our interviewee's name dot text. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong one. Actually, I could probably still use that one. Just change this to dot text to a blank string, because we want it to go back to blank for the next person. Okay. After the conditional, set the interviewee's answer text to blank. So not the name, but the answer. Set that to blank, but they want that one outside of the conditional because we want that to happen every time we ask a question, whether we're on the last question or the first question. Okay, error alert, setting the text entry blocks in the wrong place may prevent some information from being stored in your database. If something's not saving, then check where in the algorithm you're clearing the text box. So if we were to put this set text to blank up at the top, it's going to clear our text box at the wrong time before it actually records our work. Okay. The next step, step 20, asks us to add a set display questions.text at the end outside the control structure. You may copy and paste the blocks from inside the initial screen, initialize the screen, event handler, or recreate them. So we're going to duplicate this, okay? And I believe it's going right there. Because it says outside. I lost it. After the conditional statement, but inside the event handler. So yep, it's going to go right underneath that interviewee's questions. Go ahead and take a minute and test your app. Make sure it works. In your textbook, I'm going to bring your textbook up real quick here. The question is, you now have a way to record the date a question is answered as well as all of the responses, but where is that information going to go? If we flip our card over here, it's going to tell us that a database on the device that only that app may access. So a database is a place, it's kind of like a spreadsheet, but it's a little more complicated. It's a place where we can hold and control data and we can manipulate it, change it up, things like that. Okay. The next section in our text, we're going to be concatenating into one string for the date picker text. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize all of those so we can move on to the next section. The user needs to be able to select the date of the interview. We're going to use the date to help store the data so we can keep track of things. Okay, it's going to be the identifier for each question. To help us understand the date picker components, it's important to know how it provides information about the date to the rest of the app. Okay, so use the date picker test label to practice seeing what the string will look like before you store information to the database. Okay, so go ahead and test your app, see what pops up in that date picker test label. And then we're going to work on setting the output of the date picker component. Okay. Give me just a second. Computers are running a tad slow this morning. They're saying it is too early. Apparently 8 o'clock. I guess that's the difference between being in home and being at school. Oh, I went to the wrong one. So looking at 1.2.1, just want to pull up. Oh, they didn't break it down. All they gave me, I wasn't sure about this step, but all they gave me was the final answers. I was hoping for a step-by-step here. Okay, so it says, set the output of the date picker component to date picker test label to see the date that the date picker provides. Once you know what it looks like, adjust the string that the component returns. For example, making the date look like the ones below. In the screen 1 blocks drawer, select the date picker drawer and drag out date picker 1 dot after date set. Okay, so we're going to date picker 1, the very top one, when date picker 1 dot after date set. Okay, so we're setting up a new one. Add a date picker text. So we're going down here, date picker test dot text. We got tongue twisters already this morning. Okay, so there we go. And then we need a concatenator. We're going to concatenate our date in order to make it work the way we want it to. Okay, so now we're going to go to our date picker. I lost it. There it is, date picker. We're going down here and we're going to grab our date picker dot year. Okay, we're going to change year. We normally start with month, so we're going to choose month. I'm going to duplicate that. After the month, we have the day. We're going to mutate this and stick one more string at the bottom so we can put in the year. Okay, so just setting up our date picker. You might have to stick spaces in here. You might have to stick blank strings in here to make spaces. By concatenating them just like that, everything might run right together. I'm not sure what it's going to look like on your screen. Oh, they're going to show us something new. Adjust the start and length values to pull out only the part of the string you need. Okay. So I'm going to minimize that one and drag that up there. We're on to 31, storing known output in a database. So this is where we're going to tell our computer to store our information. So from the tiny DB1 drawer, so over here on the left, we have a tiny DB1 drawer. We're going to pull out the tiny db.store value. So this purple piece. We're going to add the procedure block to the then part of our conditional. So where it says when get next question dot click, we're going to grab that. This is going to go in the then section. Okay, that's going to go in the then section. The tag, where it says tag right here, the tag in the procedure will mark the value to be stored with a specific identifier so the database can pull out just that one record. Helps identify different pieces of information. In this app, the person's name, question number, identify the date of the interview, and the response to a particular question. And for the tag socket, concatenate the interviewee's name from the input text and the index value. So we're going to go to text and get a concatenator. And it says we're going to concatenate the interviewee's name. So we need interviewee's name.text. And I forgot what else we were concatenating. And the index value. This way you'll know who answered which question, so you can have more than one person answering the questions. Okay, so we're going to go get our global index. I'm just going to duplicate this one. Okay. For the value socket, copy the previous concatenation that showed the date, name, index, and response. Okay, so we're going to do another concatenator. It said you can copy it from your date picker. I'm just going to remake mine. So I got another join date picker month. Yeah, add in another string here so that we can put a line on it. Again, before I said you might have to put some spaces or some dashes or whatever, and then we want the date picker day. Okay. So the one that we just created, this date picker after date, we were doing this to test our date picker to see how we wanted to set it up. Like they said we could just copy this and paste it over here if we wanted, however we wanted it. So they're saying that we can now delete this test because we know that it works and we know what it's going to look like. So that's completely up to you. I'm going to hold on to mine, but your textbook does say that you can delete that because we know it works, provided you tested it. Okay. They want you to test it again, cycle through the questions, see what you come up with. Hopefully everything is stored. Okay. The next thing we're going to the next thing we're going to do is what's called a list view. The list view component is designed to show entries from the database by using a tag to retrieve information. You're going to use the retrieve DB list button to run through a loop that will pull the items from the database and display them in the list. Okay. So as a programmer, you know that the program populates each item on the list one at a time as the loop executes. To a user, it happens so quickly it looks instantaneous. So we're going to create another event handler. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this one and put it in our pile over here. This time our event handler is going to be tied to our retrieve db.list. What happens when we click that button? So that's the event handler we're working in now. Inside that event handler, we're setting up a local variable. So we're going to go to variables and we want to initialize a local variable. We're going to call it store list. Okay, so we're going to call it store list. This is a variable to store what the list gets initialized to an empty list because the information, the tags are retrieved from the database and it puts them in a single list, much like your interview questions. So we want this variable to create an empty list. So we're going to go to list, create empty list, because right now we're just creating a list for us to put stuff into later. Okay. For each item in the variable block, you will use a for each item in list loop from the control drawer. So we're going to control, and there's going to be a button that says for each item in the list do, and that's what we're going to put inside that local variable. Okay. Set the list socket value to be equal to tiny db1 procedure call of get tags. So we're going back to our tiny db1 and we want it to call the get tags. Okay. Because we want it to go get the information that we're putting in here. The loop's going to look at each individual piece of data and complete a specific action. Okay, and that's what we're going to put here in this do. We want it to store things. We want to add things to our list and store them. So we're going to go to our list and we want to add items to our list because we're adding whatever it is that they're typing into our list. This is where we're going to get our store list. We say, go get the stuff that they're putting in it. We're going to grab a concatenator and a blank text box. Okay, just to give it some space between things. And then we wanted to go get, we're going back to our tiny DB. We wanted to go get our value. So right here it says get value, tag, the value if the tag is not there. Stick that one on there. Let me move this over. Okay. So our tag here is our item. Okay, so we wanted to get our item. And if it's not there, if they haven't answered the question, we want it to come up as an error. We also want to set our view questions where they're looking at our questions. Right here underneath date picker, we have one that says view questions. We want to set our view questions to also get that store list. So view questions dot elements, and we're going to put this one outside of our for each item list. We want that to also get our store list. Okay, so we want that view questions dot elements to also pull that list where we're storing all of our data. On step 42, they break down this entire set of code. Okay, I broke down some of it as we created it, but this would be a great place for you to read through to see exactly what each thing does. Okay, take a minute and test your app to make sure it's working before we go on to the next section. So the next step that we're going to do in your textbook is the speech to text. So we have set your entire program up to run based on the user typing in the answer to their question. Okay. So the next thing we're going to set up is our speech to text. So adding answers to questions may be time consuming on your tablets. It may be difficult for people to type. Making an app to meet a need should focus on simplifying life, not making it more complex. So below are the blocks required to use the speech recognizer component. Okay, so they've actually given you all of the answers. Let's go ahead and get this set up. So it says when record is clicked, so we're going to find the record button. When record is clicked, we're going to call the speech recognizer. There it is, speech recognizer.getText, because that's what we want it to do. When they click record, we want it to start getting their text. When speech recognizer 1, after getting text, we wanted to tell it what to do once it has the text. Then it's going to set the interviewee's answers .text. We're doing a lot of concatenating today. So we're going to grab another concatenator. And we're going to need 3 sockets on our concatenator. So stick another string in there. We wanted to take the interviewee's answers. Nope, not their name. Their answers. And concatenate those with the results. And stick a period at the end to make it an actual sentence. Okay. Once you have those set up, go ahead and test your app and make sure it works. Okay. The next step is to set this so that it clears the database. Now, we created a button that said reset DB list. So keep in mind, it says reset. That means, that when we do this, when we reset the DB list, it clears out the data, okay? So it doesn't just clear that one user, it clears out all of the data. So keep that in mind when we're doing this, that you only want to click that button if that's really what you want to do, okay? So we're going to reset DB list, and what's going to happen when we click that button, so we're going to pull out that event handler. We're going to call the tiny database dot clear, they want clear all or clear tag? Clear all. And go ahead and try that. Hit that reset button. Does it clear out all of your information? Could the user accidentally reset and lose all of their data? Well, yes, they could. Okay. So we're going to create what's called a notifier. Remember, we put this notifier in when we set this up. We're going to add in a notifier block. Notifier that requires them to select yes. Let me see here. Notifier after choosing. Okay. We're going to give this an if-then statement because we want them if, let me try that again, if their choice equals yes. Okay, so we're doing some logic here. If their choice, so we're going to get our choice, equals yes. I'm assuming true. Oh, no, they want text. Yes. And we're going to call that tinydb clear all. So we're just going to ask them. They're going to click the reset button. We're going to say, are you sure? Because we don't want them to reset it accidentally. Okay, so that notifier will give us one more step of protection with that one. Now we set our questions. I set my questions. I don't know what you set your questions to questions that were in the textbook. That is not the right spot. I was looking for my questions. This one. Nope. Okay. Somewhere in here. Ah, there we go. Initialize the global interview questions. That makes sense. So I set my questions to the ones that were in the textbook. You can set these questions to be about anything. We could ask questions about what people thought of the pep rally. We could ask questions about how people feel about the music in the hallways. We could ask questions about anything. Their opinion on sports, their anything, okay? You can ask questions about whatever topic you want to choose. I just chose the ones in the textbook because I didn't have any topics off the top of my head. When you're finished with this, please go ahead and make sure you've completed your vocab and the Google form and take a screenshot of one of these event handlers, preferably a longer event handler, and pop it into your Google Doc. So to do that, you're going to need your snipping tool. So if you come down here and type in snip, it should give you what's called a snipping tool. And when you click new, then you can click on your screen and just grab part of it and copy it, and then you can paste it into that Google Doc that's in your classroom. Okay. If you have any questions, just drop me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you and have a great day.